On Monday, January the 23rd, SpaceX fueled up a fully stacked Starship for the first time. Marking a significant step toward the vehicle's first orbital mission. Elon Musk's SpaceX ran through many of the operations that would be performed on launch day with Starship at its Starbase facility in South Texas. Welcome to First Class Tech, and in this video, we will see how SpaceX's Starship rocket sailed through the first fueling test. The fully built Starship rocket from SpaceX appears to have passed a key wet dress rehearsal test on the first try. With the conclusion of that test, SpaceX's next-generation rocket has gone a significant step closer to its first orbital launch attempt. The largest rocket ever manufactured, Starship stands roughly 120 meters tall and 9 meters wide. It is intended to launch over 100 metric tons into low Earth orbit in a fully reusable configuration. Starship's 33 Raptor engines will provide up to 7,590 tons of thrust at liftoff, making it far more powerful than any rocket in history. Starship likely became the heaviest rocket ever on Monday, January 23rd, when SpaceX fully loaded the vehicle with propellant. Surprising most observers, SpaceX also appeared to accomplish the complicated test linked with that milestone without incident. The apparent success is remarkable because it was not SpaceX's preferred technique while developing Starship. Since SpaceX began building Starhopper in an empty Texas field in 2018, the Starship program has almost entirely prioritized speed and expected failures. The company virtually always wanted to produce, test, and learn from minimum viable product prototypes as rapidly as possible. Even if failure was inevitable, SpaceX anticipated mishaps, learned from them, and always had another prototype ready to carry the flame forward. Starship prototypes seldom passed ground or flight tests on the first try, as SpaceX was learning, often disastrously, how to test and operate those vehicles at the same time. Though Starship's future in space will be exciting, the vehicle has been grounded for nearly 2 years. The most recent Starship test flight took place in May of 2021, when a 3-engine upper stage prototype named SN-15 flew around 6.2 miles above Starbase. Several other upper stage Starship prototypes had made similar trips, but SN-15 was the first to land. After 4 failed attempts, a full-scale Starship successfully launched to 12.5 kilometers, shut down its engines, plummeted back to Earth, restarted its engines, flipped about, and landed in one piece on the 5th attempt. The campaign appeared to be the ultimate validation of SpaceX's development plan. However, in the second part of 2022, SpaceX chose to drastically alter the Starship's program risk management and system engineering approaches. As a result, Starship testing has grown extremely careful in recent months. There is a chance that SpaceX just got lucky, but Starship's first fully assembled wet dress rehearsal test looks to show that caution paid off. Since mid-2022, both stages of the rocket, Ship 24 and Booster 7, have performed dozens of different proof tests and static fires. They have also passed numerous, significantly more restricted tests when stacked. After carefully characterizing each prototype as thoroughly as possible, SpaceX ultimately pulled the trigger on January 23rd. After hours of preparing the massive tank farm at the Starbase, Texas orbital launch site, SpaceX opened the floodgates and loaded up to 4,860 tons of cryogenic liquid oxygen and loaded up to 4,860 tons of cryogenic liquid oxygen and liquid methane propellant into Ship 24 and Booster 7 in about 90 minutes. The aggregate weight of the rocket and propellant likely exceeded 5,000 tons when fully loaded, making Starship the biggest rocket in history. Saturn V and N1, the next biggest rockets ever manufactured, weighed roughly 2,800 tons, fully loaded. About 4 hours after loading the rocket, SpaceX was able to drain Starship and return its propellant to the pad's ground storage tanks. Later, the corporation acknowledged that the test was a full flight-like wet dress rehearsal, as expected, and stated that the data acquired will help verify a full launch countdown sequence, as well as the functioning of Starship and the orbital pad for flight-like operations. SpaceX did not appear to enter any form of hold or abort during the wet dress rehearsal, indicating that the rocket systems were all working well enough together to complete it on the first try. The only moderately troubling behavior observed during the multi-hour test occurred shortly after Starship was finished. Booster 7 attempted to relieve pressure by opening one of its methane tank gas vents, but instead appeared to release liquid methane, creating a flaming cloud hundreds of feet long. The Super Heavy was most likely slightly overfilled, and the liquid vent was an intended response to that error. Fortunately, the methane cloud did not ignite, and Starship proceeded with the test as scheduled. Ship 24 and Booster 7 still need to be prepared for Starship's first orbital launch attempt. Booster 7 must yet complete one or more static fires before becoming the most powerful rocket ever tested. To mitigate risk, SpaceX will most likely remove Ship 24 during Super Heavy testing and rejoin the rocket only if Booster 7 passes its tests. SpaceX must also fix the pad following static fire testing and collaborate with the FAA to finalize Starship's maiden orbital launch authorization. However, after numerous false positives, Starship's successful completion of a wet dress rehearsal on the first try has proved that the rocket's orbital launch debut is finally within reach. By the way, if you're watching us for the first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can enjoy our future videos while getting updated. Now coming back to the topic. For the time being, SpaceX looks to be ready to send a massive amount of material from Florida to Texas, including components of a probable launch deluge system, 4 mid-range storage tanks, 2 or 3 big storage tanks, 5 high-pressure gas tanks, various pieces of an apparent launch deluge system, and an unfinished Starship booster transport stand were all prepared and ready for transportation in a matter of days. There was no evident proof that the hardware was all SpaceX's or destined to the company's Starbase, Texas facility and launch site, save from implicit statements from trusted sources. The last section to arrive, the base of an unmistakable Starship transport stand, all but proved that the destination is Starbase. SpaceX has previously flown hardware from Florida to Starbase several times, including a trio of tanks in October of 2022, increasing the likelihood that everything visible is headed for Starbase. It's also possible that SpaceX installed 4 mid-sized tanks and lots of high-pressure tanks at LC-39A in its first effort to build a Starship launch site at Kennedy Space Center. The resumption of construction on a completely different Starship pad design at 39A in late 2021 certainly renders such hardware obsolete. It's likely that the 4 smaller tanks being sent to Starbase began at 39A and are being relocated in the hopes of being more helpful elsewhere. Furthermore, satellite images obtained on January 3rd of 2023 and released by Harry Stranger show a pair of larger tanks sitting idle at pad 39A. Finally, the consignment is probably certainly SpaceX gear heading for Starbase, Texas. The outcome of Monday's wet dress rehearsals keeps this Starship vehicle, which is made up of a Super Heavy prototype named Booster 7 and an upper stage variation called Ship 24, on track for an orbital test flight in the near future. According to Musk, that mission, which will take Ship 24 around the Earth once, with the planned splashdown in the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii, may launch from Starbase as soon as next month. However, SpaceX must still check a few critical boxes before that can happen. For example, the business will destack Starship in order to test all 33 Raptor engines on Booster 7 at the same time. The most powerful static fire demonstration that SpaceX has conducted with the vehicle so far included only 14 Raptors. This past September, Ship 24 ignited all 6 of its Raptors. SpaceX is building Starship, which will transport people and fly to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. NASA chose the vehicle to be the first crewed lunar lander for its Artemis program, and Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa reserved a round-to-the-moon voyage for himself and a group of artists and influencers. SpaceX also expects Starship to launch the majority of its large next-generation Starlink 2.0 internet satellites and to eventually take over almost all of the company's spaceflight obligations. And with that being said, it is time to end our video. Before that, we would like to know, what are your views about the future of Starship? Let us know in the comments. Like this video and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos like this one. We will see you in the next video.